Life throws you punches. Trauma, life, and burnout. I've lived through it all, and I've built something for the fighters that refuse to stay down. If you're ready to stop playing small and own your story, then this is where you belong. The Unstoppable Network is where the overcoming stories are getting very loud. From veterans to survivors to trailblazers, sharing their story of turning their pain into power. Welcome to the Unstoppable Network, where we turn your mess into a message.
All right, it's good to be back, and we have an amazing new intro video. Of course, we changed everything over to the Unstoppable Network, and I want to give a huge shout out to Merrick Avro from Future Evolutions that completely did that video. So shout out to him. I just want to give anybody that's out there that's in podcasting or coaching or anything like that, and that needs help with their producing and things like that, definitely get over to Cast Magic. Cast Magic has been one of those things that has completely evolutionized my podcast, has definitely helped me with show notes, and it's great for coaches as well. You could take your courses and your classes that you had, put them in Cast Magic, and that it gives out homework. It gives out really good exercises for your students and your clients. So definitely go check it out, if nothing else. But it has saved me at least 20 hours a month just by using this one tool. So go check it out. I'm glad someone shared it with me. I was, I think, in year 3 of podcasting before I finally got a chance to get into that. But anyways, better late than never. So go check it out. Cast Magic, https://get.castmagic.io/IATMOA80WOJI, just in case for those listening on Spotify. All right. So I'm excited because this new guest that I have on today, I met this incredible lady eons ago in another lifetime when I was, of all places, working at a daycare. So my boss at that time introduced me to Debbi, and we, kept in touch and then just got reunited. And so Debbi is the owner of Dare to Declare. She is the queen of vision boards. But before I don't want to spoil it, I want to get Debbi up here. So Debbi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, man, goodness, it's been a long time. We were talking about this last week, but it's been quite a journey. And so welcome. I'm excited to be here. I was actually on your show, Dare to Declare, years ago. And so I'm excited to have you here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was, I think, during COVID. It was before I even started a podcast, and it was like, what do we do on Friday nights? And so I decided I would interview interesting people. And I think you were either writing or had just written your book. And so then we talked about that. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely. So share a little bit about who Debbi really is before we get into the nuts and bolts of the vision boarding and things like that.
Well, if I don't go by labels, I would just tell you that I love anything with peanut butter and chocolate. I love twinkle lights. I love, in the summertime, I love white wine. In the wintertime, I love red wine. And after I speak, so I am a speaker, if I have a long day of workshops or speaking, I love to settle in with my husband of 35 years and have a glass of wine. So now the labels, I am a mom of 4, and I have 3 in-laws as well, and 3 grandbabies. And as you said, I spent 30 years in childcare, and now I'm a professional development, empowerment coach and speaker, trainer. I certify people in my proven process. I'm also an author, a podcaster, and those are some of my labels.
Wow. So what made you decide to have a career in education? With the small minds and things like that, just molding those small people to bring them up into leaders of today. What would you say would made you start there?
Well, I really rather defaulted into it. I went to a private school, and I remember talking to the guidance counselor, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And so I knew I had a knack with children. I had done in my church Sunday school and different things like that. I babysat all my life. And so I really didn't understand the responsibility and also the opportunities that early education would offer. But I went into that sort of not really naive, but fell in love with it. And also, as I discovered my own why, and some of that came through discovering my own childhood trauma. I was sexually abused by my grandfather when I was a little girl, and my own adoption story, realizing that children and childhood was very sacred to me. And I really wanted children to experience, first of all, safety, that they felt safe, and then joy, and that they could be children in a safe environment and learn through failure, through hypothesizing different kind of ways of playing, and always being supported by a supportive parent or educator. And what was also important was like having good food, and I wanted them to have like a memory of good smells when they walked in, that being like banana bread baking in the oven in the kitchen. So that's where in childcare my why was really important, that I wanted children to grow up into adults, and that when they were adults, that they would look back at their experience and say, that was such good years. And I know that I achieved that because I did stay there for 30 years, and I had second generation come back to the childcare. And so that's how I knew that I had achieved my goal, that parents who had been children came back with their own children.
I love that. I knew nothing about that. Nothing about your story that you shared about the abuse and things like that. So, wow. So not only are you a trailblazer, you're definitely a survivor for sure. Wow. And that is so powerful. I think sometimes nowadays educators and teachers are like, I can only remember I had one amazing teacher, and I had one teacher that was like, oh my gosh, like, why are you even a teacher?
Yeah.
My grade 8 teacher, Mr. Lockerbie, he was a great guy. Remember, he had said something about my dad. I was not great in math back then. I think it was grade 8. And my dad helped me with my homework one day. And so he said something about my dad, because I guess I must have got something, all of them wrong or close to it. And I said to him, don't ever talk to my dad in that way ever again. Like, I don't appreciate that. And I was the only student in all of his years of teaching that had ever stood up to him. Now, this guy was a hard ass. And so at the end of the year, when he was doing his like going away speech, he said, he, in all the years of his teaching, I was the only one that truly gained his respect, because I was the only one that stood up to him. And I was just like, okay, well, there we go. We're blazing a trail there. And I had a college teacher that was teaching accounting by computers. He had his girlfriend in there teaching the course. He was ready for retirement. He just wanted to get out. I swear to God, this was actually in Chatham in St. Clair College. And I'm like, why am I paying for this education? Right. But there is a lot of amazing teachers out there, such as yourself and Cheryl. Shout out to Cheryl, because she is an amazing educator. I forget Cheryl's last name, so you have to forgive me. I know her maiden name's Towsley, but there we go. But I know, and everybody that I worked for at that daycare was absolutely amazing. And I love the kids.
I also just want to acknowledge you as a child for standing up for your dad. And, at a time where, like me too, like children were to be seen and not heard, and we were to respect authority at all costs. I mean, things are changing now, but I think for you to have that courage and like thinking about what you do now
Yeah.
for people, being, unstoppable and supporting people and being advocates and being their voice, that was already instilled in you as a little girl. So I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Well, thank you. I didn't even think of that till you said that. There's one thing. You can say whatever you want about me, but you don't bash my family. That's one thing. you know, and I think he said it in front of everybody, which was more even humiliating. So, anyways, doesn't matter. I think he's fully retired now and enjoying the lax of luxury. But yeah, thank you for that. I didn't even think of that. And it just as a teacher, like I wouldn't even want to be an educator right now. I just can't imagine, especially since COVID, and having to teach, having to be home when when COVID first hit with my stepson. Like I couldn't even imagine. I was going crazy. But then again, I was also doing a full-time job, and then having him come into my office every 2 minutes. I need help. I need help. I'm like, that's what your teacher's there for. But one teacher with 30 students online, I couldn't even imagine. We definitely made sure she got an LCBO card at the end of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, and so 30 years in education, what made you decide to take the transition into entrepreneurship?
Well, a couple of reasons. I think we only move for two reasons. One is pain and the other is pleasure. So when we get to where we no longer tolerate what the situation is, we will move. And then when we have pleasure, which is the promise of something better, then we move as well. So for me, it was both. It was where I really felt that government, I just felt really strangled and restricted by regulations. And then of course that just got more and more complicated with COVID. I mean, I had already given my notice pre-COVID. I didn't know about COVID when I gave my 6 months notice, but I was finding my job description also became more and more administrative, where I am a visionary. I'm a very creative person, and I loved working with people, and I was pushing more paper. I was just becoming more and more frustrated with the job itself. I loved childcare. I loved my employees. I loved my board of directors. Not every person in 30 years, but for the most part, I had a very good, strong leadership. And I loved it. And there was a ceiling. So this is where this part about there's something more is that there was a ceiling for, it didn't matter how hard I worked. There wasn't the reward in terms of money and just opportunity for bigger impact. I grew our organization along with my board of directors. Like when I started, it was 12 employees. When I left, there was 75. We served 450 children. And we were one of the best in the province. We piloted a new curriculum, a new way of being with children that was play-based learning. And we won awards. We won local awards for our childcare and the culture, but then also we were recognized in being a leader in the new way of being with children that was play-based. Yeah. So I kind of peaked in terms of where I could go with impact. And so I knew that there was something, I was meant for something bigger. And so that was the vision and the opportunity.
We have a storm coming in, so this is why you might be having a little bit of difficulties, but we will get Debbi back as soon as possible here.
I'm frozen?
Play-based. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. I lost you at play-based.
Okay. I think that I think maybe it was you. I think I was still recording.
Okay.
I don't know, but I can repeat that piece. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
please.
so we were one of the best in the province in terms of play-based learning. And so I feel like I peaked in that in terms of where I wanted to take our organization and grow it. And I just felt personally I was meant for something bigger. I liked the opportunities that being a leader in the province gave me. I was on stages now serving large groups of people, and I really enjoyed that. And so I thought, what else can I do to make a bigger impact, but to also bring more joy? I also noticed that I wasn't with children anymore. I was working with the adults, but by supporting the adults, I wanted to treat my adults the way that I wanted them to treat the children. And I knew that if they felt safe and they felt joy, then they would be able to create this beautiful culture, which they did. And so I wanted to do that in a bigger way, not just with my team, but how could I do that? I thought nationally and maybe globally. So I already had that vision, but I didn't know how. So that's where I jumped in and I found vision boards. And I found Jack Canfield. He's my mentor, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And he wrote the book, The Success Principles. And he's been a really big influence in my life.
Wow. I love that. And so you got to meet Jack in person. I
have a number of times, actually. Yes.
I've been stalking you on social media since I left the daycare. And so, when I saw you actually being there with Jack and being there in his studio and things like that, I was just like, man, that is like a dream come true, a bucket list item for a lot of people. And what was that experience like for you?
It truly was. So I had watched him on YouTube, like everybody else, from afar, and admired his work, his mindset. And so I flew to Boston in 2018, right before I opened my doors, so to speak, and launched my business, because I thought I need to go and get inspired by just being in the same room with him. So I bought like a cheap seat, like $100 for the day. I went with a girlfriend, and that's when I truly was like, he's the real deal. And I bought the CDs at the time, still the CDs and stuff. And I did get a picture with him, and I wrote in my workbook, I will do a big training with Jack Canfield one day. I also wrote, and I just shared this with my assistant. I showed her my book, and every single thing I wrote down, was that 7 years ago, has all manifested. I said, I will leave my full-time career to step into vision boards full-time. I will drive a cute luxury car. So all those things have manifested. I was in one of the most underpaid, undervalued professions, like in North America. Like childcare traditionally is very underpaid, undervalued. And then to be rubbing elbows and to have that vision that I would be, rubbing elbows with some of the most influential thought leaders in the world was just huge. So what was it like? It was mind blowing. I hired a coach. So I've always known, like, I need to be prepared. So this goes back to my early years days when I would work with children. You don't want to just go into a room of, little ones and you just can't wing it. Like, you want to have some little songs in your back pocket. You want to have little storybooks in your backpack, something that you can take out to engage the children. So I do that for myself as well. I know that I function best when I'm prepared. So I hired a visibility coach, and she helped me really calm my anxiety and to feel mentally prepared to deliver my interview with him. And so when I actually went in, I was quite calm, actually, and feeling very confident about the interview, knowing that he also wanted me to be my best. It wasn't like he was trying to trip me up. Of course, they're all there to help you succeed. So that interview, I think we only stopped once. It was all basically in one big take. And it's on my YouTube channel. So if you go to my website, which is on the bottom here, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is my name as well, Debbi Sluys. And it's about a 20-minute interview with Jack. And it was amazing. And I'm going to go see him. So we're taping this here early summer, but I'm going to go see him tomorrow. I'm flying to California. And it's his last in-person event, actually. And I'll be hanging with him and 400 other people, but at his last live training tomorrow.
Wow, that's insane. Insanely good. Like what a
Yes.
vision board manifestation that would be. So, okay, so vision boards, but what is Dare to Declare? Like how, other than, well, some people might not even know what a vision board is. I mean, there are some people out there that have no idea. So share with us, I guess from the beginning, what your business does.
Sure. Well, let me start with my name as well, because Dare to Declare, for one, I'll just tell you, it is a bit provocative, I suppose, because you're daring, and declaring. But that's the whole point, is that you push yourself out of your comfort zone, and you do what you did as a little girl. You stood up for your dad. You dared to declare his respect for his name, and you spoke your truth. And that's exactly what my name is that I want, especially I work with women, to speak up first for themselves, but yes, for others, to share their vision. What is it that I really want? And for many of us, we just haven't even entertained the idea of what do I want. It's something that we know what our kids want, our spouse wants, our employer wants, but what do we want? That's not something that we spend a lot of time reflecting on, and certainly not telling others about. So dare to declare what it is that you really want, because that is the secret, raising your vibration, raising your emotion, to attracting it. So what a vision board is, it's a collection of images, and you can make them, there is no wrong way, I'll say that, but I have a better way. And so I would say it's a collection of paper images. So actually physical paper versus being on Canva or Pinterest or Instagram. And the reason for that is it goes back to my earlier background, because we know that when you actually, it's kinesthetic, when you have the paper in your hand, it makes a connection into your heart. Like you're feeling your choice. So it's a collection of images that are intentional and that are adhered to a board. And I'm saying that on purpose because I'm a big proponent of glue versus just taping or pinning, because it's a commitment. It's a decision. And the reason that that's really important is because when you decide that this is what I really want, going back to the idea of wanting what it is that you want, it shifts something within your mind, and that you can feel the frequency, the vibration, as though it already is. So you're putting images on your board with these three words in mind. Who do I get to be? So be. And then the secondary piece after the board is completed around goals is what do I get to do, which are the actions, the new habits. And then the have is what is sent from the divine. We leave our hands open to see what comes in, what's revealed. Most people create a vision board the other way around. They have the have first. What do I want to have? Which is why vision boards can sometimes get a bad rap. Understandably so. For those who are just winging it, not prepared, then they may create a vision board with stuff like a fancy house, big house, fancy car, jewelry. And those things can be on a board, but it's about the reason that they're on the board. Is it really about your being? Who do you get to be, the best version of you? Now, I call my best version of me $1 Million Deb. And so when I think about $1 Million Deb, I think about, who does she associate with? How does she speak? What are her habits? How does she take care of her skin? What does she eat? How does she take care of those around her? How generous is she? So it's all the decisions that I make on a daily basis, that being. So the $1 Million Deb, those images. So I'm represented in all of those images. They're not just like floating around on a board, not having any connection, which is another reason why on my process with the vision board, I recommend that my clients put an image of themselves on the board so that everything else is connected and anchored to that image of themselves in a happy time. So those are just some of the tips that I have, but it's truly, it's a collection of images that helps you live on purpose with purpose.
Wow. And so what do you say to the woman that says, I don't even know what a dream is, what my dream is, sorry.
Yes. And on occasion, I have people that I think of it like a pilot light on a stove, where you just turned it right down and it's like, it's not even hardly a flicker. And so what I do is I have exercises where I support my clients to dial that back up, because as we were little ones, we talk about children, that's that optimal childhood I was talking about, where they have no limits. They're limitless. There's no barriers to whatever they want, who they get to be, all those things. And so I may bring her back to that little girl, her inner child, to say, when you were little, and if she wasn't suffering in terms of any trauma, if she had a relatively healthy childhood, I'd say, who did you want to be when you were little? And we can start working up from there. It may also be, I would remind her. So again, we're just looking in the past initially, is to say, what were some of your happiest times in your life? Maybe it was your wedding day, or it was a beautiful vacation, or it was the birth of your children. Like, how did you feel? Who was there? What was involved? Okay, so family is really important to you. So what would you do if you could create more of that? What if you could invite more of that into your life? So we're going to go back to the happiest times and then start from jumping off from that point, and then start to create the vision in the future. But there are some people that have really suffered, and like COVID, we talked about earlier, and they're in jobs that are toxic, perhaps. So one of the workshops that I also include in my academy, where I train trainers, is called a power word. It's a single word for your year. So it's a beautiful tool to self-regulate. And that's a term that I use in early years too. And all of us have seen the toddler who's not self-regulated, the toddler who is in the grocery store screaming at their mom that they want the sugary cereal, and the mom's going, no, and the child's going, right? And like, they're totally not regulated. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, Mel Robbins, in her book, Let Them, she said that most of us are walking around with an 8-year-old brain, and most of us actually don't have a great capability of regulating either. So before we start judging the toddler, like, that's most of adults too. So What do we do about that? Well, we get to practice. And so when you create a word for your year, and it's going back to this idea of identity, which is similar to what I talked about with the bigger vision board. When you are, who do you get to be? So that version of you. Now, Dorothy, you just did this with me, and I think your word was free, right? Freedom?
Yes, free. Yes,
free.
That's my word. Yes.
Yeah. So when you are free, then when you are challenged at work, if you, I'm just being hypothetical here, but if you, have a toxic situation or a challenging conversation or stress with children or with your spouse, then you reset. It's like you're a thermostat. You're not going to get hot. You're not going to get really cold. You're not just going to fight, flight, or freeze. You're going to say, I am free. Despite circumstances, despite this energy that's in the home right now or whatever it is, I say that I'm free. And you make your decisions, the next step, based on that feeling and that decision that you say who you are. So those would be some of the tips I would say to get started.
Wow, I love that. And so you said that you had different programs. So now I just thought vision board was a vision board. You make your vision board, you put it in front of you. Historically, that's what it's done. I've done like a couple. There's even been a feng shui one that I've done before. So how do you take that? Well, obviously, even how you started off by saying that you do have, instead of just putting on there what you want. So that even in itself is different than what I've actually seen and witnessed before.
Mm-hmm. And, people actually, another lady that I follow is Jamie Kern Lima, and she and Oprah. So I'm not sure if it's an Oprah quote or if it's Jamie Kern Lima's quote, but they say, you don't get what you want, you get what you believe you're worthy of. So yeah, you get what you believe you're worthy of. And so that's where these 3 words come into play. Ask for what you want. So ask, believe, and receive. And so that's why this believing piece is really the hinge between the asking and the receiving, that you can ask, but if you don't believe that it's possible, that you don't believe that you're worthy, you're not going to receive, because you're not going to be open to it. That even though the universal laws are sending it to you, you will probably sabotage it. because you don't believe that you're worthy of it. So it might be knocking right on your door and you'd be like, no, that's too big. That's not for me. That's, that's going to require too much time. And all the excuses will come up because you don't believe that you're worthy of it. So believing piece is really big around that. So ask for what you want, believe it is possible, and then be open to receive.
Wow. Love that. Love that. Because there's a lot of people out there, they may have a thought, oh yeah, I'm worthy of it. But subconsciously there's something there, like when you said like sabotage, you want it, but you don't think that you're worthy in order to get it. And so there's a lot of limiting beliefs in our way of getting what we want versus, when it comes into us. So, I mean, if we think it, we know it's there as possible. Because the moment you thought about it, it's already on its way to you. It's just this, the self-sabotage, like you said, or the limiting belief that's, hey, it's not going to be there. So I love that. Love that.
Yeah. Fear can really be such a paralyzing factor in terms of your manifestation. And I haven't really used the word manifestation yet, but that it's coming to you and actually I'm writing a book, and I was just writing about this today around fear and faith, and they both require a belief in something that is unseen. So faith requires that you can't see, but you have to have faith and trust. But fear is the same thing. Most of us are afraid of what might happen, and yet it hasn't happened. So, and our body responds to fear in the same way as though we are physically being attacked. Even just by thinking about it, something. And I'm sure we've all had that where, and again, I was given this example as I was writing today, in my previous role, when through the glass door, if I saw a parent moving really quickly towards my glass door, my body would respond almost as though I was bracing for an impact. Like I'd be like, oh no, and it was based on previous conflicts that I might have had with families, even though that was maybe 1 out of 20, because I had so many positive experiences. The one that was negative was the one that I was defaulting to, and I was responding in my body. And so when we can shift that, reframe it to say, I'm going to believe that every conversation I have is exactly what it's supposed to be, and that I'm going to be able to handle it and resolve it. And that if the family has a complaint, it's valid, and we're going to work through it. Instead of the biggest fear being that I'm unsupported. So, going down the path of, okay, so if the family complains, that might go up to my board of directors, and the board might have to notify officials. And that might mean that I'd be under discipline, or I might be fired. And if I'm fired, I can't pay my bills. And if I can't pay my bills, I'm going to be homeless. And then maybe my marriage is going to be ruined. Like I'm not alone in this. I know that because I work with one-on-one clients. And when we pull the thread, this is where it shows up. It's the biggest fear is I am unsupported, that I'm going to be alone and I'm going to be not safe. I'm going to be homeless. I'm not going to have safety. Those are the two biggest fears. And so that I'm unsupported. So when we can go, oh, wow, that escalated fast, Deb. That's not true. So what do I know to be true? And who do I decide to say that I am? I'm a woman who is competent and is wise and is kind. And I'm going to be able to handle this. Then I can reframe it. Because if you're walking into a conversation with all that fear, whether the family has a complaint or not, they're going to come in and go, wow, like it's going to feel combative already. Even before, like maybe it was a mild kind of thing that they were concerned about, but they're already feeling, because you're already sort of almost subconsciously looking for a fight. And so, right. Yeah, I don't know. I've just gone down a rabbit hole here with you, but these are some things I've been thinking about today.
No, I love it. And you pretty much any woman out there listening has either in the moment right now or has had these moments, and you're just giving them another tool to say, hey, wait a minute, it's funny because you just were with a favorite mentor of mine, Kathleen Cameron, a couple of weeks ago, and I saw your picture on Facebook today. And it's funny because her thing, she's my mentor, and her thing is according to who, right? So we have this limiting belief, or we have this belief about something, or this fear, but according to who, or where did you get that fear? And so that has always been in the back of my mind as I'm studying with her. It's just like, oh yeah, so-and-so must have told me this once upon a time, and I believed it. So you can change his belief in an instant, and just reminding yourselves that you can change that belief in an instant. You don't have to remember it like that forever, and stay in that mess. But I love
and
that
she
you
talked
said
about
that.
it today. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And she talked about it. I noticed today when she talked about emotional impact, one thing I learned from her 2 weeks ago was I always thought about emotional impact from a negative standpoint, but she's absolutely right that emotional impact can also be something that we create ourselves. So, when somebody walks in and it's their birthday and we all yell surprise. I mean, it's like surprise, like everybody gets excited and everybody's pumped up and was that surprise there a few minutes ago? Yes, but it's just that in that moment you created that beautiful energy and everybody decided, and you decided to be excited for this person. And so I love that idea that we can create the emotional impact. So, because our brains only change for two reasons: emotional impact and repetition of thought. Now, if you can do both, that's even better, which is where the vision board comes into play. Because when you repeatedly focus on your vision board, you have repetition of thought. Like, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. And if we think about how many times we've heard negative messages, like you heard about your dad, I'm just going to keep going back to that, right? So you could have internalized that as a little girl to say, I'm not from a good family, or I'm not smart because he's saying my dad's not smart, or whatever it is, that you could have internalized that. But you're like, nope. But many of us don't do that. And we internalize that as a little one. And it takes time for that message to be like, you remember the old cassette tapes where we got to take out the tape and insert a new one so that it's now spinning in a new way. So repetition of thought, which is the vision board, but then the emotional impact, whereas when you allow yourself to fully focus in on each of the images, and let's say you've got a picture of the Caribbean on there, or, you are in a convertible, or you are meeting your mentor, Kathleen. You said that was on your bucket list and you're hanging out with her for the day. That's on, you can feel it. You're like, oh yeah, that's going to be so amazing. That's emotional impact. So when you've got both of those, which the vision board offers, that's when you truly are going to elevate your vibration, your frequency, which means that you're going to be a major manifester.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So then you have the vision boards, and then you have your vision word for the year. Mm-hmm. So you also talked about the academy. So what's the academy?
The academy is where I train trainers. So what happened was when I left my full-time job and then went online because it was COVID and I got my own training from a global company, I was being reflected back from coaches from the UK and Ireland, United States. Deb, nobody's doing vision boards like you. And I said, oh, that can't be true. There's a saboteur, like my own saboteur showed up and said, that can't be true. How am I special? And I was sitting on acres of diamonds in that I had something so phenomenal that I had taken Jack Canfield's work, put together what I knew around child development and how our brains work, neuroscience as well, infused with my faith. And I had created something really amazing. And so they were asking if they could borrow some of the materials, some of my curriculum to use with their clients, because they said, everybody talks about vision boards, but very few people know how to do it tied into this work intentionally, the work of, Think and Grow Rich, Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield and so forth. And so I was like, okay, I guess. And then I felt this nudge, just like I had to start my company, like, okay, Deb, it's time to level up. And I was very afraid. And I'm just going to be really transparent here. I actually was worried, like, what if I train all these people and then I put myself out of work? What if they all do the vision boards and then nobody needs me anymore? And I mean, these were real things. Again, the saboteurs show up with a vengeance and they just show up in a new, different cape. And so I got coaching. And so my coach was like, is that true? And I'm like, no, it's not true. And so I created a program. We now, over the last 4 years, have over 50 graduates from 5 different countries who are using my proven process, doing vision board workshops within their businesses. And so they do range from coaches, but entrepreneurs, people that sell products, anybody that deals with imagination can use a vision board as a beautiful lead magnet, meaning that it's a great front door. It's a great entry into their business. So, I mean, I sometimes feel my heart, it hurts a little bit for people that are just, doing the mindset work. And it can be challenging to market it, to get a really clear marketing message around, what you do to help them. Because as I said, we only move for 2 reasons, pain or pleasure. So yeah, so you can talk about the pain, but what's the reward? That might be more challenging to offer that within a coaching marketing message. Whereas a vision board, it's like, hey, come do a vision board experience. And then, once they come, they're like, oh, I didn't know I was going to be crying. This work is really deep. And it's like, yep, it really is. And then they want to know what's next. So it's been an amazing opportunity to work with people from, like I said, 5 different countries, and people that are grief coaches, people that are divorce coaches, people that work with children, that work with families. My recent graduates include 2 Indigenous leaders, and she just shared with me that they did part of the workshop this last couple of weeks, and they used the teepee. So just incredible. Like there's so much. It's growing so much wider and deeper than I ever imagined, and has become my legacy in terms of my business.
Oh, wow. And so you have another workshop coming up soon, don't you, for the Academy?
Yes, I have. So it's a 7-week training program. It starts in July 16th. And then our students will all get their own vision board. I also have a vision board magazine. It's my own exclusive magazine, because people all say, I don't have magazines. And it also, I created the magazine because coming out of COVID, people wanted me to do in-person workshops abroad. So this way I can just pack 12 magazines in my suitcase and travel everywhere, which has been amazing. So yeah, so the students get their own vision board experience. And then for the next weeks after that, till the end of August, we'll be meeting weekly. They'll get workbooks, recordings, and I'm going to train them with everything that they need to be able to deliver the workshops and hit the ground running for the 4th quarter. And I also do everything white labeled. And so that means that all of the PowerPoints, Google Slides, they're all able then to rebrand them to their own business. So it doesn't have to, it's like getting a franchise, because they're getting a business in a box, plug and play, but without any of the franchise requirements. They can make it their own. And then we have ongoing monthly meetings as well that are part of the initial investment. So if they want to hang out and stay in our community, like over half of them have, which I love, they're welcome to do that. And they come every month and we meet together. Mm-hmm.
I love that. All right. So let's just get real here for a minute. What's the biggest, boldest risk that you've taken as a business owner, and what did it teach you?
My biggest, boldest risk was leaving my job. And I had 2 questions that were really instrumental in me deciding that. One was, what's the price you're paying for not following your dream? So that really puts that pain and pleasure thing into perspective. Ooh. But then it wasn't just about me. It was like, what's the price those around you are paying for you not following your dream? And I thought about my grandchildren and the freedom that I desired. And so that's when I made that decision. So that was October 2019. And I gave my notice to my board in 2020, and then COVID hit. And so I was really afraid. Like, I had made that decision, which was a big risk, but then to continue with that decision in the face of pandemic, which meant that I couldn't actually do in-person workshops. I couldn't even do the way and make money the way that I had been doing it and offering them. So I had to pivot quickly and stay with my decision, which I did. And then the other bold thing that I did was most people might retreat and save their money. No, I put all my savings into a high ticket coaching program and just invested and went all in. And so I would say that was my biggest risk, but the biggest payoff as well, because that's the reason I created the Academy, because I was global and just up-leveled in such a dramatic way as a coach.
Wow, I love that. And you had full support of your family by doing that.
Well, I will say my husband was observing me, but I think he said to me like, so what happened as well was his company sold. We didn't know about that when I made the decision. In fact, as I was exiting, so I had given my board of directors 6 months. I think an offer came in on his company like in June, and I was leaving July. So this it wasn't one because of the other, but it was certainly great, because he retired as well. And but he said to me like 6 months after, he's like, "So you had no plan B?" I said, "Nope. I was all in." And he's like, "Wow." So, yes, I've had his support. And, he said some things to me that I love his perspective, because he's not in this work, meaning he doesn't, the lingo, he doesn't talk about things like manifesting. And I remember, but he hears me all the time, and I'm like on all the time. Like, so even when we're on vacation, I'm still coaching my clients. And he said to me, we were at breakfast one time, this is in the Dominican, and he's like, "So manifestation, that's just life." I said, "That's the most profound thing you've ever said." I said, "Yeah, it is just life, because we're manifesting all the time." People talk about manifestation as though it's only the good stuff. No, we're manifesting things we don't want as well, because where your focus goes, your energy flows. So this is where I help people get really intentional. What do you want? Ask for it, get clear, and then you're going to manifest that in. But if you don't, it's going to default to what you don't want. And if you're hanging out with toxic people, if you're in a toxic job, if you are constantly grumbling, if you think that you're not going to have money, you're always worried about money, that's going to be your result. And so I was like, yeah, manifestation, it's just life. Absolutely.
I love that. It's funny because my husband is not in the personal development world either, and so, but I can see that as I evolve and I change, it's like I feel like small little things from him. Like every once in a while, he'll say something. And it's funny. The first time he stepped into a church was when I met him, and I was really going to Evangel Church in Chatham at the time, and that they branched off to Thamesville, and he came with me a couple times. And so I think it was a couple years ago, he said to me, like, "I'm in the car, we're driving down, and it is the worst weather ever. And I'm just got my eyes closed." He goes, "You're praying, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am." I'm like, "Because we're gonna get home safe." So between the faith and the total transformation with personal development, it's just like they've got no choice but to come along with us. Like, we don't have to say anything with us. Our energy shifts inside the house, and I think they feel it, and so they're attracted to that, right? So I love that.
I think, and one of the things that my mentor Jack Canfield talks about, one of his success principles, is take 100% responsibility. So when I took 100% responsibility, I stopped blaming my work. I stopped blaming the government. Even as I was speaking to you, I was telling you, some of my challenges. And when I stopped venting and blaming, and I took responsibility, 100% responsibility, and realized nobody's coming to rescue me. If I want to change, I get to do this, and I need to trust. And so that also, like you said, makes a shift. And because I wasn't pointing fingers at him, and so as I started to take responsibility and to evolve as a woman, as a wife, all the things, my habits changed. I think that just improves the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the one limiting belief you still wrestle with from time to time, and how do you coach yourself through it?
That I think it still has to do with abundance and success. I grew up, my dad was a minister, so we lived in the house from the church, and so poor. And we always had what we needed. We always had food on the table and so forth, but definitely, I worked already as a teenager, young girl, like making my own money and that kind of thing. So having that wealth mindset and success, I think success can sometimes make me nervous. Like, am I going to have enough time to do this? Am I going to be able to handle it? So how do I coach myself through it? I do what I told you about that other lady. I look back and I look for instances where I was able to be held. And when I took those risks, like starting my company, like starting the academy, starting my magazine, all the things, everything's always worked out for me. And so that's how I coach myself through it. It's like, take a look back, celebrate, acknowledge it, and then trust and use that to keep moving forward.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, I can't believe we're almost at the top of the hour. Like, this has just flown by. I could be here for another hour with you, Deb. And I truly appreciate you and your time today. So this is the new question that I'm going to be asking on every show. What is your legacy?
That's going to make me cry. I would say my children and grandchildren, in that I want them to, and I know that they do. My daughter actually works for me full time, so it's been really interesting to get a close-up feedback from her about how she sees me, and that they admire and appreciate what I'm doing for others, and that I'm positive, and that I'm always trying to move forward and bring hope and joy into people's lives. So I would hope that'd be my legacy, is that people see me as loving and caring and a little bit spazzy, high energy, but that I'm always doing it with a big heart for people, and that I just want people to live their very best life.
I love that. I love that. I didn't mean to get you emotional, but
yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah, great.
And I just love that. And, I think the word legacy has been hitting me hard these last 4 years, just really, as we get older, and time moves very quickly after you hit 40. And so, like, I'll be 49 in a week or so. So it's just like, okay, what am I going to leave the next generation? And, and I think each generation does better than the last one. Not that there was anything wrong with our parents or anything like that, but when you said, and you're the only one that I've heard this, kids are to be seen and not heard. That is how I grew up, very much so. Like, my dad ruled with that, and heaven forbid, if you ask once and you were told no, you don't dare ask a second time. That just, depending on what mood the wind was in the house, you might get a slap upside the head. Not to say that it was all the time. I mean, but it was just those things. And now seeing how this generation is coming, I'm just like, wow, I just, the times have definitely shifted. Let's just put it that way. So, how are we going to improve that for the next generation? And sometimes I'm happy about what's to come. And some it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But, I guess a little bit of that old fashionedness comes out in me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because we think back, and our generation is nowhere near close to this generation.
Well, I think it has to do with respect for themselves, respect for others, respect for the environment. All of that is teaching, and that's a parent's responsibility to teach that to your children. But what I do love, and my grandson was here today, and my husband took care of him, and he's 5. And I think my husband's probably going to be exhausted because he talked his ear off. I could hear him upstairs, like he talked for 8 hours. But he had the best day with his grandpa. And I just love that my husband really listened to him. And so when we can not shush children, that they only be seen and not heard, and that we can listen to their voices. And, you know, my grandson is curious about my work, and he said, Jammy, he calls me Jammy for grandma, Jammy. And he's like, Jamie, can I make a vision board? And now I'm like, oh my word, I thought this day would never come. And he was like 4. He's not even, like, this last year. And I said, for sure. And so I got him a foam core board. Now it's mostly Mario themed. But I love that for him. And so it's never too young to start to think about setting goals, creating a vision for what they want, and just so that he feels a sense of belonging, and that his opinion matters, and that his dreams are important. And all of that develops this beautiful self-esteem. Is going to have him be a beautiful person now, but also as he grows into a teen and into an adult.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. Well, thank you so much, Deb, for joining us. Go check Debbi out at www.debbisluys.com. And that's DIBBISLUYS.com. A lot of great nuggets here. And thank you so much for joining us. Any last words for our guests before we completely wrap this up?
I would just say to dream, discover, and declare your vision. And it's never too late. So you can get started as you're listening to this. Get out a piece of paper, start writing it down. What is it that you really want? And declare it.
I love that. And like I said, go check out her website. She's got a class, the new Academy class coming up July 16th. So go check that out. As well as if you want to just get your word for the year. I know Debbie's got different classes there. So go check that out. And just say, hey, you saw her here on this show, and that will pinpoint her into like, oh, great, you know, podcasts really work. Getting the name out there.
I'd love that. Tell them that Dorothy sent you. Tell me that Dorothy sent you. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And speaking of legacy, we do have the 4th annual Don Graham Memorial Fun Classic coming up August 7th. And so this year it's bigger and better than ever. We do have a $10,000 hole-in-one prize on the line, of course, for amateurs. If you get a hole-in-one on, I believe it's going to be hole 16, as well as different food. We have Taylor's food truck coming out this year. So fish and chicken this year. And we're also having, you know, the skins game, 50-50, door prizes. And this year, we're talking about legacy. And I heard a quote about a month ago that says we die twice. The first time is our last breath. The second time is the last time somebody speaks our name. So because my dad died of cancer, we are doing a memorial wall this year. We're going to start this and you know, this will be the legacy that we leave for this event. And so anybody that is coming to the event that has lost a loved one to cancer, please bring their picture with their name on it. We will put it on the memorial wall, and we will forever speak their name. So therefore, they are always alive. And that will be the legacy that we are leaving behind for this classic. And you know, we're still needing golfers. We're still looking for sponsors. So if that's you, definitely connect with me after you've listened to this show. Go connect with our YouTube channel, the Unstoppable Network. Subscribe. Please share with your friends because I know this channel has helped more than one person through a challenging time. And we are all here for you. We're all in this together. You don't have to do this alone. And so with that, guys, be unstoppable in all that you do. And remember, same time, same channel next week. Bye for now.